Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Matt here from Chill TCG. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Eternatus VMAX deck list, sorry for the pause there, that won the Chill Series 16 tournament this past Wednesday. This tournament had 200 plus players in it, and it was won by this Eternatus VMAX deck list, played by Yosefi Gad, Yam God, I believe is what he's called on ptcgo. He had a great run in the tournament, and we've all seen Eternatus VMAX lists before. We've seen Poison variants have some success. We've had just straight Eternatus have some success. And this deck list is a little bit different than ones that typically win tournaments. So I figure, obviously we're going to take a look at it. It won the tournament, but we're going to dive in a little bit and maybe talk about why this deck list in particular managed to come out on top, at least for this past tournament. So this is the deck list that we're taking a look at here. Before we get into it, though, I want to just go ahead and show you guys his matchups. So these were the matchups that he played in the tournament. So, of course, we played 13 rounds of Swiss, and then he did, of course, make it into top 8 cut. So, just starting off at the very bottom there, he goes off and plays 3 ADP Zacians right off the bat. Now, personally, I feel like Eternatus VMAX is a very good matchup against ADP Zacian. Of course, he did beat 3 in Swiss. He beat 1 in top cut, so he was 4 for 4 against ADP Zacian. I do think Eternatus VMAX has a good matchup against ADP, but this one in particular I think does have a good matchup. Now, of course, if ADP is not playing, if that deck is not playing Big Charm, it makes it a lot easier for Eternatus VMAX to one-hit KO ADP tag team in the active spot if if Eternatus really gets that hot start and gets the full damage potential off on turn 2, which it often can do, as long as it doesn't get hit with hammers, or even if it does and you get that power accelerator off. But it's got plenty of Pokemon Search. It's a very consistent deck, Eternatus is, and for that reason, I think that it's almost always going to be able to hit for 270 on turn 2. If the ADP doesn't have a Big Charm on the ADP, then just one Zigzagoon later, it's just going to get hit for 280 and get knocked out, and that puts ADP in a very difficult position. But if you see, our Eternatus list, or the one that we're looking at today, is actually running 3 copies of Hammers and 2 copies of Dangerous Drill. So that's going to be a big sort of reason why this deck, I think, had a really good matchup against a lot of decks that we'll see. But let's go back up to the matchups real quick. So yeah, he played 3 ADPs right off the gate, beat them all, and then he ended up playing 2 Centiskorch players, Robert Hines and Aiden Kuss. And both of those players are actually very good as well. So interesting for sure that he beat 3 ADPs and then 2 Centis in the first 5 games of the tournament. But he also played Diego Milla playing Pikarom on round 6 of Phase 1 of Swiss. So he went on a 6-0 run in the tournament, beat 3 ADPs, 2 Centiskorches, and 1 Pikarom. These were the other most played decks in the tournament. Now, of course, if you look at the scores from some of these players, they actually did very well in the tournament, 5-3, 5-3, 8-5. So, definitely some good players that he beat up against. It's interesting that, he did beat Centiskorch. I feel like the Centiskorch matchup is pretty even as far as things go. I think if whatever player really draws better, the more success they're going to have. But I do think that Poison Eternatus, doesn't have as good of a matchup against this Eternatus list, the one with hammers, because I think, if you hit them with a couple Dangerous Drills or Crushing Hammers or whatnot, it's really going to slow them down, and sometimes they can't even 2-hit KO you because you do have 340 HP, so I think that's going to be a big reason. But both these Centiskorch players did pretty well in the tournament, so it's interesting that he got the win. What's even more interesting are the 2 decks that he lost to in Phase 1 of Swiss the last 2 games. After beating probably the 3 most played meta decks other than Eternatus in the tournament, he lost against Orbeetle VMAX, which had a fantastic run in the tournament, went 10-3-1. And then he lost to a Dragapult. Now, I think Dragapult definitely actually has a pretty good matchup against Eternatus, mainly for the reason that Dragapult these days focuses around energy denial, and Eternatus really only manually attaches turn by turn, so that can be difficult, a difficult matchup for Eternatus, as well as this being best of 1, so you don't know how well Yosefi drew here in those 2 games, right? He could have just kind of drawn cards pretty poorly and didn't get a good start, and that's always going to hinder him. But this deck list definitely seems very consistent, and we saw that in the finals, which we do have a video of, guys. So if you haven't seen the grand finals match featuring this deck list, then go check that out. I posted it a few days on the channel. So yeah, he went on he just went on one heck of a run there in the beginning of Phase 1 of Swiss. Beat a bunch of meta decks, then lost to Orbeetle VMAX and Dragapult VMAX. which is tough. But he went into phase 2, which was 5 more rounds of Swiss, and went 4 for 5. So definitely very impressive. He beat Decigoons, which, this is a matchup that I kind of want to focus on here. Again, Decidueye and Goons sometimes, actually does just kind of beat Eternatus, for the fact that if you don't have a lot of single prize attackers on Eternatus or things to KO the Decidueyes, then you're going to kind of struggle. So I think it was impressive that he did beat Zach Cooper there. But I think with the 2 Spiritombs, you do have Yveltal. You have the hammers, you got the drills, and then you also have multiple ways of poisoning in this deck. I think it kind of worked out personally in that matchup. I'm not sure. But it's definitely super interesting that he did get the win there over that Decidueye Goons. I would be interested to see that matchup and see exactly how he played. But I think a deck list like this, you have ways to poison. You have 3 Spiritomb in the Yveltal. I don't find it to be impossible to win that matchup. And also, like, if Zach Cooper there got a rough start playing Decigoons, he wasn't able to get the Decidueyes out in time, then these Eternatus can really just start hitting them and one-hit KOing them, right? So you don't know. Maybe Zach Cooper wasn't able to get a hot start, wasn't able to get the board state that he wanted to against this Eternatus VMAX deck, which otherwise is very consistent, so that could have been a factor as well. Beat Cinderace. Cinderace Swiss VR, they're a great player, actually was a really great deck right now in the format. Did very well in this tournament, so impressive, of course, getting that matchup as well. I do think that Eternatus kind of wins that matchup as well, but we saw Reshiram and Charizard, kind of like a welder box deck. Zekrom there went 9-4, got the loss, or sorry, he beat Zekrom, but Zekrom lost to him, and then he ended up losing to a P-Grump, so he went 50-50 in P-Grump in the tournament. I think that's pretty fair. I think P-Grump still is the best deck in the format right now. Eternatus has a pretty 50-50 average matchup against P-Grump, as far as I can tell. But maybe it might be slightly favored in terms of Eternatus. But, if P-Grump is able to, get a quick start, accelerate energies early in the game, snipe up some Crobats, maybe Tag Bolt GX, you never know. But those 2-hit KOs on Eternatus while sniping something on the bench can be just very, very good, as well as the Boltons, which can one-shot a lot of things if you get enough energy set up. So, so he lost to P-Grump in phase 1, or beat P-Grump phase 1, then lost to P-Grump in phase 2, and then he actually got the win over Mad Party as well, which I do think is a hard matchup for Mad Party, since it cannot one-hit KO in Eternatus VMAX, and unless they really get boss, it's just going to be tough for them. It's just impressive, right? Just in those 13 games of Swiss, he went 10-3, which is very impressive. It was enough to make cut. So when he went into top cut, he replayed Swiss Fiaro there, Cinderace, so he went 2-0 against Swiss Fiaro, playing that Cinderace list. And then he also beat another Mad Party in top 4. That is Simone, who is also a very good player. So again, it says really a lot about not only just Yosefi, but how consistent his list was. And then he played ADP Augusto in the finals, guys, and I highly urge you to go watch that match. I will say that Augusto, had very tough luck in that best of 3 match there in finals. Both games, Augusto, he just didn't get what he needed to. He didn't draw cards very well, and the Eternatus, Yosefi or his Eternatus list always seemed to get off to a really good start and consistently get what it needed to. And I think that's the biggest thing with Eternatus right now. It's a very powerful deck. You can run it how you want, but really I think consistency is the big driving factor to the success for Eternatus. If you're able to get good starts, if you're able to get a good board state early in the game consistently, then I think you're just always going to have a much better time. And I think that's where Poison kind of struggles. It's powerful, but it's less consistent. A deck list like this, I think, keeps its consistency while at the same time having some extra benefits with the energy denial and things like that. Definitely go watch that match. He 2-0'd ADP in finals. I'm not sure exactly what the other ones were in top 8, but yeah, an incredible run in the tournament. In total, he went 13-3, so it was a very good run for this Eternatus list. But you guys are here for the deck list, so let's go right back. And let's start to take a look and break down this list that Yosefi was running. Now, of course, you have the Eternatus V and the Eternatus VMAX. He's running a 4-3 lineup. I like 4-3. You definitely want to start Eternatus V at the beginning of the game and get that energy attachment. So we're running 4 of those makes sense. But you're never going to really put more than 4 Eternatus VMAXs on your bench, or more than 3 rather. So it makes sense probably. You're probably never going to put 2 on your bench, right? So it doesn't really make sense to run 4. So I like the 4-3 lineup. One of them might be prized. One Eternatus V and VMAX might be prized. And if that's the case, you're still going to be fine. you know, for sure. 4 Crobats, of course, every Eternatus list should have 4 Crobats. And he's running 1 Absol, guys. So if you don't know, Absol, you know, you run it for the ability here. If your opponent's active Pokemon is a basic Pokemon, its retreat cost is 1 more. A lot of decks are focused around basic Pokemon. Decks like ADP, decks like Pikarom. This Absol can be very good in that matchup. It's, again, you have a huge bench space with 8 spots on your bench with Eternatus VMAX on the board, and Absol is just a very good tech card to put in there to disrupt your opponent, especially with the energy denial that we're running in the deck. So I like Absol a lot. Again, it's sort of like a disruption version. I'm going to skip on over. So we're running 3 Zigzagoons in this list. No scoop up nets, so 3 Zigzagoons, you just get put a damage counter on any of your opponent's Pokemon. And what's interesting is you'll see a Galarian Slowbro V, so at first glance you might be like, is this poison? But it's not. It's not a poison Eternatus list. He's just running the Galarian Slowbro V. He's not running Dark City, or I think he is running. He's running 1 Hiding Energy, no Dark City, and a 4 of Switch. So you might be thinking, like, is he consistently really going to be able to get this poison off with Slowbro? But the thing is, you know, you are actually a decent amount of time going to be able to you know, get the switch, or after you get KO'd, you know, you bring it up and then you have a switch in hand to just switch out. So it works similarly to a Zigzagoon, except that it stays turn after turn. So the poison works very well with Absol when you lock them into the active spot and you poison them. It makes them take multiple damage counters between turns. Effectively, it's just a more consistent Zigzagoon ping, but only on the active spot. This actually came in clutch against the ADP in the finals there, if you watch the Grand Finals video. So, interesting. You don't often see Galarian Slowbro V in Eternatus when it's not actually a poison Eternatus list. But either way, definitely really cool to see it in here, and it was actually pretty clutch. He's got 2 Spiritombs. This seems to be the best single prize attacker to be paired up with Eternatus. You know, as long as it doesn't get sniped on the bench after like 3 or 4 turns, it can come back and hit for, you know, 120, you know, up to 150, which is actually very decent and can get the 1-hit KO on some Decidueyes and another single prize Pokemon like that. So I like Spiritomb. Personally, for 1 energy, it's probably the best single energy attacker in the game right now. I know people run Hoopa. Hoopa can be very, very good as well. And I like Hoopa in Eternatus, but he went and he ran Tate Whitesell. He messaged me on Discord. So so he's running just 2 Spiritombs, but he is also running a Yveltal. Now, Yveltal is really cool because it does have free retreat, so it acts as a good pivot, but also you have that attack derail for 30, discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. You get clutch 62 energy. Pokemon can't retreat during your next turn. It is what it is. I think this Pokemon, for its free retreat cost as well as its ability to discard special energy, goes very well with the theme of this deck. Between the 3 Crushing Hammers and the 2 Dangerous Drills. Everyone knows what Hammers does, but we're not running 4 Hammers, we're running 3, and we're running 2 Drills. So you can only play this card if you discard a Dark Pokemon from your hand, but you discard a Pokemon tool or a Special Energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. Special Energy is incredibly common right now in a lot of decks. Almost every deck that you play, things like Luke Metal, really almost any deck except for like ADP, I would say. I'm not going to list them all off, but most decks, at least other than ADP, focus around special energies, whether it's Pikarom, Centiskorch these days also is running them, Luke Metal with the Coning Energies, Dragapult, whatever it might be. A lot of decks are running special energies, including other Eternatus lists. So I like Dangerous Drill a lot, and discarding a Pokemon tool can also be very clutch as well, getting rid of those, those Big Charms against ADPs, or like Air Balloons. There we go. Sorry about that. Getting rid of like the Air Balloons with the Big Charms, or even Toughness Escapes in some scenarios, can be just incredibly good. Dangerous Drill, I think it's a little bit more dynamic than Crushing Hammer, and it works super well in Eternatus since we're running 19 different Pokemon in this deck. So that's it. That's sort of the core of our disruption with this Eternatus list. One that a strategy that I really like. We all know how good Hammers is. Dangerous Drill seems to just be a bit more consistent, as well as a bit more versatile. And along with Yveltal, I just like it a lot. And the Absol for sure. It's definitely just a really cool combo. For Pokemon Search, we got 4 Great Balls, 4 Quick Balls, and 3 Pokemon Communications. Plenty of Pokemon Search in this deck. It kind of makes sure that you're able to find your Crobats, find your Eternatuses, Zigzagoons, whatever you need throughout the game. No matter what, you're probably going to have some of these cards in hand, as well as some Pokemon to Pokecom out, paired with a Crobat. It's just a very consistent draw engine. And on top of all that, guys, we actually do have 3 Marnies and 4 Professor's Research with 2 Capture Energies. So I just skipped ahead a little bit, but that's all those are all consistency cards. To find Pokemon to draw cards, they all work out very, very well. We see he's running 4 Switch. it just makes sense with the Slowbro and just really almost any scenario in the game. You're going to want to switch multiple times. For Switch, totally makes sense. Most decks are probably going to be running 4 Switch. And then for stadiums, he's just running 1 Swell. So he's not running Power Plant. He's not running Dark City. He's not running Black Market or anything crazy like that. He's just running a Chaotic Swell. And for a deck list like this that is focused around disruption, Chaotic Swell is going to be your best option. I think, Power Plant is very good. It can be very good against ADPs and against Mewtwo's, but most decks are just running Chaotic Swell anyway. And if they're not, they're probably Welder decks, right? So you're probably better off just running at least 1 Chaotic Swell. It's going to help you in the long run. And if you can get that out early in the game, you can really stop your opponent who's playing Welder decks to stop them from getting a quick start and getting those energies in hand to use Welder, right? So Chaotic Swell, in my eyes, is the best stadium right now if you're not running Giant Hearth, for most decks at least. So 1 Chaotic Swell. He's running 3 Boss, so no other gusting options other than these 3 bosses. We're not running, catchers or Great Catcher or anything like that, right? He's just running 3 Boss, which is a decent amount. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be hard to find those Boss's orders. You most definitely will be able to draw into them with the Crobats and such. And personally, I don't know if you need 4 Boss in Eternatus. You're never really using Boss more than 2 or 3 times in a game. Sometimes you're forced to discard 1 or 2, maybe once prize. So I think 3 Boss is fine for sure. You might struggle a little bit with the consistency, but 3 Boss I think is totally fine. And then, like I said, the 3 Marnie for research really just makes this deck that much more consistent. Then for the energy lineup, like I said earlier, 2 Capture Energies with a Hiding Energy. The Capture Energy is just going to help to populate your board state even quicker. I think it's very good in Eternatus since it does have a colorless energy in its attack cost, as well as, you really just want to flood your board early in the game to get that 270 damage off as early as possible. So you play a Capture Energy on Eternatus, maybe you look for the Absol, maybe you look for Spiritomb, maybe you look for Slowbro, or Yveltal, right? Those are all the cards, or Eternatus. Those are all just the cards that you'll grab other than the other than the Zigzagoon and the Crobat, because you want to use their abilities from your hand when you play them under your bench. But for everything else, all the other basic Pokemon, you can just find them with Capture Energy, and it's always going to be pretty good for sure. 1 Hiding Energy, again, it does work out very well in those scenarios where you do need to retreat out for free. I like it. I like Hiding Energy. I think it just works well in Eternatus. Then he also has 1 Weakness Card Energy, which is a little bit interesting. But with the massive amounts of Colossal running around these days, thanks to Zach Lesage and a few other players, Weakness Card Energy more and more seems like a decent play. You don't want to get hit or put in a scenario where you're getting 1-hit KO'd and you're playing Eternatus VMAX, because oftentimes that's just not good for you really at all. It's never good, but especially with this deck, since your energy acceleration is very slow because you're just manually attaching every turn, right? So I think that Weakness Guard Energy, though not always useful, when it is useful, it's probably very important. I'll just look back on his matchups. He didn't play anything that he was weak to in this tournament, which is interesting. Didn't play any Colossal or any other Flygon or anything like that, but if he did, I assume it probably would have been pretty useful, but overall, probably not too important of an inclusion in the deck, but you never know if it can come in handy. And then 6 basic Dark Energies. I like running at least a decent amount of basic Dark Energies, because if you are going second, that Power Accelerator is going to be super clutch against decks that are running Crushing Hammer. If you're going, if you're going second, or even if you're going first, whatever it might be, right? If you don't get the Power Accelerator off, you only attach 1 energy on your first turn, and then you get hit with Crushing Hammers, the next turn you're at a severe disadvantage, realistically, without getting that quick start. So I think hammers are becoming a little bit less common. It's that might sound crazy of me, but we've seen a lot of ADP lists in this tournament, at least, that weren't running hammers. People are running Pikarom lists without hammers. So, and Insanity Scorch now is the most played deck this past couple weeks, which also doesn't run hammers, right? So it's honestly being played less than it has been in the last month or so. So I think that hammers are still very powerful. Energy Denial is still very powerful, and this deck list definitely takes advantage of that and that form of disruption. But again, he's running 10 energies. That is the standard with Eternatus. I maybe would like to see a 7 basic energy to 3 special energy sort of mix here. I don't know if you need that weakness guard. I think you can probably take out the weakness guard, put in another basic energy just to have that consistency with the Power Accelerator, if you can do it, which is just a great way to start the game. But yeah, I mean, it's a very cool list. Again, it's different. It's very different. It's not Poison E-Turn. It's not straight E-Turn. It's not, it's not anything like super out of the ordinary. It's just kind of E-Turn hammers, like a little bit of disruption E-Turn, which, one is very consistent, and also those hammers and those drills, man, they're gonna get you sometimes. Yeah, I don't really have too much to say, guys. So again, the full deck list in the description down below. I want to congratulate Yosefi for winning the tournament. Big shout out to him. Thank you for everybody who played. And I guess we'll just wrap it up by letting you guys know that Chill Series number 17 is coming on Wednesday. Chill Series tournaments are every Wednesday. Link to register in all of our tournaments is going to be down below. And other than that, we actually have the $3,000 cash prize pool GG Tour Chill TCG Cup number 3 ptcgo tournament that is coming on January 23rd. So in about a week from today, we have a $3,000 cash prize pool tournament that we are running with GG Tour as the sponsor. So, definitely go check that tournament out. I'll also link to that. It's going to be down below. It's going to be a massive prize pool, one of the biggest prize pool tournaments of all time. We ran one last month as well. It was a huge success. So if you're looking to win some cash, play against the best players in the world, I highly suggest that you go and check out that tournament, guys. But I'm going to head out of here. So I hope you guys like this deck list, and hopefully it's something that shakes your typical Eternatus matchups up a little bit. So I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.